I kind of grew up in the industry at the bottom. I started mowing and, I was mowing for a city department and there were just no full-time positions available. So then I started looking for landscape companies. Kind of ended up, where we are today, all because I found a landscape company that had a really good owner and I don't want to say took me under his wing, but it's one of those situations where there's so many people in the company, there's only so many people that have motivation to move up. And there's only so many people that want more money and understand that to get more money, you have to give yourself value. And if you're not valuable, what reason would they have to move you up?
Exactly, yeah.
But through all that, then I ended up here.
Well, welcome back to another episode of The Cost of Doing Business. Today, I am in Chris Reisenberg's home near Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm doing a tour through Ohio this week. I brought my son Chase along just so we have a little daddy-son time. But this is the second stop for the day. I was at Steve Kidwell's place in Prime Outdoor. They do a lot of pools on the east side of Columbus, and made it out here to Cincinnati tonight. And we're gonna spend the evening together, but I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your business and your background and all of that on the show here.
Yeah, it's been unreal because kind of the backstory of how we found out about SynkedUP kind of leads back to other guests that you've had on the show.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So I'm in a business group with Nick Connolly.
Oh yeah.
So I don't remember how I got introduced to Jim. So we're in a business group, both with Jim Wirtz, and somehow I was in a group on Facebook, and I was looking for ways to kind of, I needed a way to bring ideas into the company on how to do things that, I'd already been a manager in a landscape company and I'd already managed accounts and done a little bit of the financial side of things, but I'd never really run my own business. So there were a lot of all these new scary things that were happening, okay, now we need accountants, we need this, we need that. And one thing I never thought of was a business coach. And it was probably the biggest game changer, kind of equally tied with SynkedUP, that really started helping us start to we're still on this progression of making changes, but it's got us on this progression that we would have never been on had we not gotten introduced to him. And when I first got off the phone with Jim, I kind of balked at the price. I'm like, boy, we're super small. And we were just two guys at the time. And I was scared. I was literally scared. And Jim was like, yes, it's a lot of money, but the money that you're going to make in return for what you're investing is way more than you're even contemplating right now.
It's like what is the cost of not doing anything versus what's the cost of the thing,
right?
What's the cost of not doing anything?
Well, and like it goes back to like training an employee. Somebody told me once, like, if you invest time and money into training an employee and they leave, what happens? Okay, you didn't waste that money because they did the things that you trained them to do while they were there. But what would happen if you didn't invest in training them to them and they stay with you? Then you're putting yourself behind, which is going to cost you more in the long run, just because they're not following the training and the processes that you've set up.
And there's something about training and teaching other people what you do that forces you to become a better operator. Because it's like, why did I always do it this way? Or how did I make a decision on to go left or right? And you have to be able to explain that to someone. And so for just the sheer act of you having to come up with, well, this is how we do it, just makes you a better it makes you better at your processes.
Yeah, I think, I kind of grew up in the industry, at the bottom. I started mowing and, I was mowing for a city department and there were just no full-time positions available. So then I started looking for landscape companies. I'm like, well, we really don't landscape. We had city parks, we had to mulch. There was no professionalism to it. It's just go dump mulch on a site and be done. So I'm like, well, I like that, and I like taking care of plants, and I like plants in general. So, maybe I'll go work for a landscape company, maybe see where it goes. And, kind of ended up, where we are today, all because I found a landscape company that had a really good owner and kind of just, I don't want to say took me under his wing, but, it's one of those situations where there's so many people in the company, there's only so many people that have motivation to move up. And there's only so many people that want more money and understand that to get more money, you have to give yourself value. And if you're not valuable, what reason would they have to move you up?
Exactly.
But through all that, then I ended up here, and I'm still learning that training guys on all this new stuff now. You get a guy that I got a guy now that he hasn't mowed grass in probably 10 years. So putting him back on a mower is, he's having to kind of relearn everything. All the mowers are different now. They're faster. They're more powerful. They used a lot of belt-driven stuff when he was doing it, and nobody's really using that anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's neat because it's teaching me a lot about just kind of patience, but understanding that I still don't know everything. I probably never will. But there's a lot of stuff that I thought maybe I had the right way or I knew the best way. And, my guys are always showing me ways that, we can make this faster doing this. And you've thought you've figured it out and you've got the fastest way. And, so it's kind of neat. But
well, go back and tell us who Chris Reisenberg is and how you got into the industry and how you eventually ended up with your own business.
So, like I mentioned before, I started with a city department, and it was just the city I grew up in. So I started kind of in high school, just working for them through the summer, basically cutting grass, weed eating, things like that. And, it was a great summer job. You got to be at all the, we had to work all the events. So you were at all the firework festivals and all this stuff. And it was really fun, but it was seasonal. When I got out of high school, there just really wasn't, it was kind of in a weird time where a lot of the full-timers were still in their 40s. They weren't retiring anytime soon, and there were just never any full-time positions. So I started to kind of look at, other things, and one of them happened to be a landscape company here in Cincinnati. And I didn't really know what I was going to be doing when I went in. And I think kind of now that I've been in the industry so long, I was kind of like all the young adults that I talk about now, like everybody wants to come in and just ride a mower. I just want to ride a mower. Well, you got to start at the bottom, so I started at the bottom, making $8 an hour. Did basically just anything they asked me to. A lot of it was grounds maintenance. But, we touched on, I'd kind of work in every different area of the business, except the irrigation side. And eventually just, through motivation and just being motivated to learn, they realized that, we can give him a crew, and then, he's going to produce X amount of money because, he likes to learn all these new things. So I ended up running an enhancement crew after my first year. And, we did a mix of everything, new installs, tear outs, tree removals, sod, turf restoration, all kinds of stuff. And it was neat for me because we got to touch on everything. It wasn't just the same monotony of, okay, you're a grass guy, you're a grounds maintenance guy, you're an irrigation guy, you're a hardscape guy. We got to do a little bit of everything, and that was really cool. So that kind of got me motivated to think, well, maybe I can, I'm not going to go to college. Not that I don't want to, but maybe I can turn this into a career and I can move up through the company. There was only about 22 office staff. So I knew I had a pretty good shot of moving up into something. So I became operations manager. I did that for a few years and then moved into account management when one of our good account managers left. And I was kind of happy. I had a good salary. I had good benefits. We had, I worked for a guy that was, very generous, difficult to work for at times, but also very rewarding. sometimes he'd walk past you, hand you $500 cash, or, take you out to lunch. He was always kind of giving back to his employees, which kind of, helps me just kind of keep the mental state of where I'm building my company. But so the only reason I actually started my company is because in 2001, in 2020, right before Christmas, we went up to Cleveland to meet with a group that was projected to buy the company. Pretty quickly, and actually before we even got back from Cleveland, I decided that this kind of new venture with the new company wasn't going to be kind of in my cup of tea. I'd kind of built a reputation that I wanted to protect, and I didn't know how this new company was going to affect my relationship with account managers and
when
other
you say
companies.
You build a reputation, do you mean like with your team internally at that company, or with the customers, the accounts you work with?
More with clients on properties, and then also property management companies and property managers around the city. And I knew kind of how everybody perceived me then, but what I didn't know is I can't foresee the future, and I didn't know, am I going to still have control over everything that I have control over now, being my accounts, my team in the field, that I can schedule how I see fit. I didn't know how that was going to be, and it turned out that it was pretty much everything that I thought it would be.
So you stuck around. You waited for that transition to happen.
I waited for the transition, and but I knew pretty quickly that I was going to get out, but I needed time to get financing together, get vehicles, get equipment. So I was there for about half a year more after they purchased, and the changes came pretty quickly. Everything was still logoed the same, everything, but the switch from the software we were currently using to Aspire was very quick.
And what had you been using prior?
SynkedUP.
Oh yeah.
And I knew. So I was there when we just used Excel spreadsheets, and there was so much, scan this off, send it to the client. Client signs it, scans it back. It was monotony. But so I'd already been through the software change once, and I'm like, man, I really don't want to help them go through another software change. It's just so much when you have, 300 commercial clients plus your whole list of residential clients, and all that data has got to come over, and nothing's ever perfect. And it's funny because when I switched to SynkedUP, I already knew I'd been through this a couple times. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be fun. But we could actually touch on that later. But yeah, so I tried to wait it out, but when I realized that the control I had over my team in the field was no longer going to be really my team as an account manager. It was going to be up to operations to schedule work that I'm selling. So
the account manager was turning into a sales.
Basically sales only, and you don't have a team under you. And we always had it structured to where, let's say operations manager ran 8 maintenance crews. But I'm communicating with the operations manager to make sure that my 2 crews are going to be on these sites on certain days, or be on this project on a certain day.
So did the project manager manage more people than the account manager? Like
yes.
8 teams versus 2? Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah,
got it.
So technically when they're in the field working, it's his job to manage their production, that they're staying on their hours, things like that. It's more my job just to make sure that the end project happens how it's supposed to happen. So really a lot of that comes down to the operations manager. In the new format, basically operations is solely operations, but that also accounted into scheduling. And your account managers are now basically just a giant sales team. So what I kind of realized was going to start to happen is I have no control over where I can send my team, when I can send them there, how many hours they can be on site. And I was brought up in the industry in a company where, if you went out on a job that was bid for 100 hours, but it took you 102 hours or 110 hours to make sure that job was perfect when you were leaving, you spent that 110 hours. you went the 10 hours extra because you knew what's going to happen in the long run if you don't. You may have run into a warranty issue, or you may have a client that says, well, man, they left this place kind of a mess. They could have pressure washed off the driveway. Well, pressure washing wasn't in the bid, but did you leave a bunch of bobcat marks on the driveway? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we probably need to clean them up. So it was, I guess not knowing kind of my fate with them was one issue I had with it, but I really just didn't want to see my reputation with property managers and ex-clients and this go, downhill.
So I'm getting a picture that you had a sense of, pride and autonomy in your role there. Like, it was not just filling a job for you. It was,
it was, I cared about what we did every day, because the guy that, started the company, that's what he preached. That's what he taught, we are a quality first company. And for a long time, that's why people hired us. We weren't the cheapest. We I would say probably not always the most expensive either. But we sold jobs that we knew we needed to make to do the job and make the company profitable. But at the same time, it was a commercial landscape company. So there was a lot of things they took that probably you could look back and say, well, you probably shouldn't have took that, and you get rid of it after a year. But with the new company, it was more of, let's go after 100 things. We're going to go after these 100 clients, these 100 commercial clients. And let's say a gas station is one of them. They have 30 gas stations around the city. We're going to bid them to kind of be in the mid-range. We don't need to be high ball. We don't need to be low ball. But if they get them, great. If they lose them the next year because they do poor quality, no big deal. They'll just go out and look for 50 more gas stations. They lost 30, they'll go out for 50. It's all about, in the end game of however many years these guys are going to retire, how much can they sell this company for? And that whole picture is, how many accounts do you have? What are they valued at? What are you billing every month? What do you bill annually, in commercial contracts? And to me, it just, I don't know. And, it just, I didn't have a good feeling about it. And I didn't want to be in a position where I'm forced to sell, especially things that I don't think clients need. I'm all about educating the client in things that will benefit them. But also, telling them that, yes, we can do this for you, but there may not be a benefit to this. I see so many landscapers every day where, they're either maybe planting a full sun plant in full shade, or, and that's a small issue, but they're either doing it for two reasons. One, because they're trying to oversell the customer, and they know that the customer doesn't know, and they don't understand that it's their job to educate their client, or they're just about selling for profit, which you have to be profitable or you can't be in business. We all know this, but I think, I don't know, I just have a problem with some of the ethics that go into the green industry, and I think there's a lot of people that do it the right way, but I see a lot of people do it the wrong way. And I think, it's not going to benefit you in the long run.
It never does.
I was just reading an article about a pool contractor the other day, and, he's being sued left and right for non-completed pools. And he's the second or third pool contractor like that in the country, just in the last few years. Yeah, you got your Lamborghini, but now you're going to be sued and you're going to lose everything you had anyway. What's the point in that?
Yeah, I think when you do those big multi-six-figure jobs like that, and you get a 50% down payment, and you sell 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 jobs, and suddenly you think you're wealthy, and because you look at your bank account balance, but what you don't realize yet is you have not yet produced and earned that money.
And you probably haven't purchased any materials.
Yeah.
You don't have any deliveries coming out, so it's like, but yeah, I think that's kind of true. And I think, that's kind of where some of the kind of my concern is in the larger commercial, and the sad part is it affects a lot more people than just that one commercial client. Let's say you go into an HOA, you really have 300 clients, but you're really only dealing with one, which is that property management company. And as long as they're happy, they may not care that Mrs. Susan at 3612 has an issue with her landscape. They fix it when they want to, or I don't know. We got a call this year from a client that kind of at the end of the call told me who she was working with. And, after she told me that, I was kind of shocked because I knew the company that had done the work was a reputable company around here. And, but then she starts describing all these problems she had about, the design. She had a legitimate design that called for a certain bed to be out 3 feet from the house, and it was going to trend around and kind of loop around the corner and come to the other side. And at the narrow, it was supposed to be 3 feet. And at the biggest end on the corner where the decorative trees were going, it was supposed to be 10. And it ended up like 3 times that size, and they didn't want to come out and fix it. And it ended up escalating so far that it got to the president of the company. And him and one of the account managers went out and said, okay, yeah, this is not right. The design says this, you got this. And they ended up probably spending more money fixing the job than had they just followed the design. And what it all came down to is the account manager that sold the job was the same account manager that marked off the areas for the beds to be. So, it's kind of crazy. I don't know. I think in every industry you have all these weird nuances that happen where you have good companies and you have bad companies.
Yeah, that's a constant. That will always be.
It's tough because you want to be, you want to build the best company you can. And I think, there's a lot of good vendors that we enjoy working with. Obviously, SynkedUP, you guys, Unilock. There's so many vendors that are out there to help. And that's the kind of people I like to work with. NDS, if I can call and get an answer while I'm on a job site, to me, that is value.
That's worth a lot,
and Unilock themselves, they're great. You can call, and in 2 days, I can have a guy on site, but they understand that value to the client, and they understand that not only are you the client, but your client is their client as well. Because you're telling them how good this product is and how awesome this outdoor environment that you're going to build for them is. And I think, I just wish there were more companies that, valued value.
Mm. So how did you get into your own business then? Tell me about that.
So it was kind of a very quick process. I, kind of talked to my wife and I said, look, I can't go into this new company. I can't do it. It's either I have to leave and there's plenty of other commercial landscape companies that I can go work for. Maybe have to take a pay cut if they don't have an account manager spot available. Maybe not, maybe make more. But I don't want to do that. I said, I'm only getting older. I said, I think now's the time we start our own thing. And for the most part, she helps with the business a little bit, but for the most part, she's a stay-at-home mom. She has her own job, and I couldn't be more blessed that, she does that. I think the kids learn better. It's been great for the family. But it also saves on things like daycare and things like that. So it's been awesome. But, so we talked and we debated it and kept going back and forth. And I said, you know what? I said, we can take a stash of our retirement and we can invest into our retirement again, just in a different fashion. Maybe not as normal fashion as most people do it. But so I basically took a loan for myself for $40,000 and we went and bought a used Ford F-250 that was a 2019. We bought a grass trailer, which we actually landscaped off of, all for the first year. That was That was a trip. We bought one new mower, one used mower, a used push mower, and actually the new mower we bought was a Skag 61 V-Ride. It was a 2021, brand new, and we sold it within a year.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So the mower was great. I loved it. But the one thing we noticed is that most of the larger properties that we thought we would be picking up, because, that's a whole nother, turf mowing is a whole nother ball game. A lot of times here you have kind of, I call them chucks in a truck. Everybody's got a name for them, but they're guys that, maybe they're not decaled, maybe they're not uniformed, maybe they're not insured, maybe they're, they've got a truck that just doesn't present itself well. Maybe they don't, maybe their mowers don't, and maybe they go out and do great work. But 9 times out of 10, you drive past a job site and they're cutting tall fescue at 3.5 inches in spring. And that by the beginning of June, that whole field's gonna be brown. So, our kind of, one thing I've really pressed on my guys is like, our approach to turf mowing is looks and health of the turf. Why else does somebody want to pay for something? They can't do it themselves. So either they don't have the equipment to make it look like we can make it look. They want that ball field or golf course look. Or they don't have time because they have something else more productive, maybe a job or a career that they need to take care of. Mm-hmm. So, why go in and make a really nice property look really bad just all because you made a decision to cut it too short? That does us no good because, one, it doesn't provide us with any good photo material that we can then use in the future for publication, for advertisement, for the website, social media. But 2, nobody's going to drive past it and go, wow, that's a smash up turf mow.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we have a really high end property. I wouldn't say really high end. It's probably $1 million house in a row of $1 million to $4 million houses. You drive past the house, it's the greenest. It's the tallest because we cut it almost 5 inches every week.
What?
Yes.
Are you serious?
I'll show you some images of it. But it stripes off so they spend more money on their turf than they do their entire landscape. We don't do their grounds maintenance because on the grounds maintenance side, they are very standoffish and they mulch once a year. The guys that are mulching it are putting down maybe not even an inch. It's blown out by, September. So by September, there's almost no mulch anyway. And, we don't even have 2 inches of mulch to work with trying to blow grass out of the beds. But I wish they would let us take over the grounds maintenance because we could just keep it a lot nicer than it's kept. But I think, based on who I see working there, I think they get a really, really huge cost reduction on what it would cost for a professional company to come in and do it. And, but their grass, you drive past the house. You could ask anybody driving up and down the street, point out the best house, who's got the best lawn, and it'll be that house. You can look on, you can take a drone shot of the neighborhood and it's brown, green and striped off, white and hunter.
That's
and
awesome.
It's amazing. But, we cut it high so it stays healthy. We try to be pretty regular about alternating patterns so we're not rutting up the yard. But it's just, it goes back to the whole values thing is if you can't have value and bring value to the client, why are other people going to look at that and, they're not going to say, oh, I got to hire that guy.
So did you immediately hire people?
So I immediately hired one person.
Okay.
And it was a good friend of mine. So a bunch of landscapers from Cincinnati are all in a hiking group together. There's probably 8 of us, and we all kind of grew up at different companies. And some of the guys would bounce back and forth. And but we try to go on a couple hiking trips, either the Smokies or out west every year. But one of the guys in the group was working for what I would say is probably Cincinnati's best hardscape company. So mostly they're doing pools, retaining walls, terrace walls, or round pools, finishing, all the paver material, all the block material, all the landscaping that goes around it. And then, they try to secure that client as a maintenance client, but they only do maintenance for a hardscape project. So if you've not had them do your backyard, they won't take you on as a client. But all their projects are, big 6-figure projects. They're in all the catalogs constantly around here. But he was kind of getting burnt out that he wasn't becoming a manager. So we kind of talked back and forth a little bit and said, what do you think about coming to work with me? And, and instead of it being, I'm your boss, I know what you can do. I know how responsible you are. It'll be a lot easier on both of us. We both know that, our skill sets, I had a really good, grounds maintenance skill set, really good hand pruning, things like that. Whereas he was all hardscape. So it kind of brought the best of both worlds together. But the hardscape world for us didn't take off as quickly as grounds maintenance did. One of our clients was in a really nice part of town, and it's only probably 4 square miles, but it's all high income earners. A lot of them work for Procter & Gamble, and you constantly have these people moving in and out of $1 million houses because now somebody's relocating them across the country. The first client we ever had, they have a private group between homeowners in that neighborhood, and they share a lot of vendors, and especially when they find a quality, respectable vendor, they blast them on this Facebook page, and it's 95% of our clients are in this 4 square miles, all because of this Facebook page.
Really?
Yeah. And there's another guy that works in the area. He's got a tree service, and he's kind of the same way.
Wow.
He went in and did some tree work one time, and somebody recommended him, and it was just a snowball effect. And on one side of thing, it kind of shows you how powerful word of mouth is in one way.
Yeah.
But it also shows you that it can also hurt you in another way. So our goal was to go more hardscape, but what happened was our first client was a grounds maintenance client. What happened? It just snowballed into more. Right.
Yeah.
So slowly we've been trying to kind of progress more into hardscape. I'd like to get in the position where we can still help anybody, especially in this neighborhood, out with their grounds maintenance needs, and just have dedicated grounds maintenance teams. But the building for me, and kind of, yes, it's one thing to go into somebody's front yard, tear everything out, redo new bed designs, and do a new install. I love it. I love just getting to see the finished product. I enjoy planting. I enjoy pruning. Hand pruning is one of my favorite things. But at the same time, the more I started building, the more I realized that I started to enjoy the hardscaping better. There's just, it was different materials that I wasn't used to working with. So we actually had a very large hardscape project this year that started in January, and we were on site from January to March. And we basically broke off, hopped into some of our grounds maintenance mode. And at this time we were still 2 guys, even going into this year. So the first year with 2 guys we started June 1st to the end of the year, we did 98. The next year, we over doubled that. We did 192 or 194 with 2 guys the second year. And this is 2 guys in a grass trailer. Up until half of the second year, we finally bought a dump trailer. But at this time, we still got 1 truck. It's 2 guys. And we were killing ourselves with, especially me. He'd go home at 5.
Yeah, right.
I go home at 5, but now I've got to do estimates, and I've got to call clients. I've got to meet with clients, and I was meeting every client after 5 o'clock or on weekends. And even my best clients, they don't want to meet on the weekend. Some do, but very rarely is somebody like, yeah, let me take that Saturday appointment from you.
Yeah.
But so then, this year we're, in part thanks to business coaching, thanks to SynkedUP and getting out of the software we were using, it was working fine, but we didn't know what we were spending. We didn't know, figure out what we're spending by looking at QuickBooks, but, you know, and I don't remember who in the business group, somebody told me about SynkedUP, and I was like, okay, let's look it up. And then, you know, had the meeting with you guys and whatnot, but we just didn't know enough financial data on the fly without going in and creating a bunch of reports and then kind of sifting through things to really know, did we even make money? So, you know, for the first year and a half, I would come back home and I had this Excel sheet that I would fill out, and I had them printed out, and you know, I'd go in and I'd rough it and just, okay, 95 on this material, 90, you know, and figure all the time out and everything. And it was just, I was stressed up to here, and you know, it wasn't good for the family. I didn't have a lot of home time with the kids, you know, and even then on weekends, I'd spend like the first 8 hours of Saturday working, the first 4 hours of Sunday working.
I'm curious, what is your observation of working with SynkedUP and Aspire and SynkedUP? Was there any others in there?
So I've also worked on Jobber.
Okay.
I think they all have their pluses and minuses. I think for, you know, SynkedUP to me was fine. You know, we got into SynkedUP really early in their kind of, I mean, they were still in like their seed funding phase. And I think they were onto a good product, but even that didn't tell you enough about what you were making. And, you know, they were incrementally updating it, but still, you know, the owner was always frustrated that now he's got to go back to QuickBooks and figure everything out, look at P&Ls and this and that. And, you know, all he wanted to do is wanted a software that would tell him where he stands right now, where he's, you know, and it just didn't do that real well. I think Aspire had a pretty good place in for, you know, a and I'm talking, you know, this company that bought us out has 30 plus locations now. You know, so not only are they merging in a lot of companies that already had Aspire, but they were already set up on Aspire originally. And I think the owners, they're never going to change because they already know that system. You know, it's kind of like guys that use LMN. We looked at LMN once, and I really liked LMN. I've never used it other than kind of just sitting in some of their trainings. But we ended up going with SynkedUP, and then, you know, when they bought, they ended up switching us over to Aspire. I didn't really care for Aspire. When I started this company, we started using Jobber. I started doing everything through QuickBooks, sending out a proposal through QuickBooks, and it was just too cumbersome. Like, there's got to be a better way. So a buddy of mine told me about Jobber, so we looked at that, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. You can, you know, I can invoice right from my phone after we complete a job, or, you know, especially on a mow day. At that time, we were invoicing every single mow instead of invoicing monthly. So that was one, you know, I'm sure terrible for the client.
Yeah,
they were getting 4 emails a month. Like, could you just send me one? And then it was funny because when we switched to monthly billing, everybody's like, oh man, I kind of enjoyed it the way it was. I'm like, really? You want 4 emails a month? Like, I mean, so I had a few customers that didn't want to switch, but we just made the switch, and, you know, it's so much easier for us at the end of the day because we're sending 30 Mo clients invoices at the end of the month, and we only have to do that once a month, you know, so it's nice. But yeah, with Jobber, I love the way the software works. It was clean, worked well, but we just didn't know enough. And somebody told me in the business group, you know, we kind of talk about different things every day. I mean, you know, a lot of times there's about, I would say 20 of us, but there's probably 15 of us that are very active, and then I'm probably kind of in the 10 that are like medium active. You know, like Nick Connolly. Nick Connolly's really, really active, but, you know, I'm kind of where he was a few years ago. You know, he's kind of advanced now to where really he's got kind of his 8 to 5 job, and then after that he can really focus on his family. You know, and I've kind of watched him go through this progression, and which is nice because it's helped me learn a lot. Nick's taught me a lot. A lot of the guys in the group, Josh Sutton's in the group with us now. And it's not a cheap group to be in, but the $2,400 a month or a year that I pay to be in the group is so much more valuable than the value of $2,400.
Exactly.
The knowledge that you gain from these groups is incredible.
So in that, in that context of, growing as a business owner and getting the business to, take flight, what is the most challenging thing that you ran into? What was the most difficult thing?
I think one, probably the first one that I came across was accounting. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a mathematician or a mathematician. And, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to learn how to do it. I just wanted to learn how to read a P&L, know where I'm at. And then, I was like, well, I'm going to have to do it. I can't just not do it and ignore it and let it go 6 months. So I'm like, okay, well, I did that for a couple months and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I could pay somebody to do this and I'm basically buying my time back to go do other stuff. So, we ended up having QuickBooks do it, which is a disaster. They got certain things really, really well done and other things, communication was terrible because it was all through email. Very rarely was it through call. You're always waiting for them to get back to you. So we ended up switching to Cycle CPA, and it's been a day and night game changer. We had to pay them quite a bit up front to go through the old books and correct some issues. But once that was done, I mean, it's been so much nicer because now, we meet with them quarterly and our guy over there, Alex, he's super kind of down to the point, like, look, this is where you're at. This is where you're telling me you want to be. Let's do these things and see how it works out. Let's try this. Let's try that. Hey, Alex, what do you think about buying a new truck? Well, I think you could buy the new truck, but then you can't get the mini skid. So which one's going to bring you more value? Having two crews or having one crew and one truck and a mini skid.
So it's someone there helping you ask the right question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're, and that's what I love about them. They have value. They see the value for their client. And they're not just relying on you to ask the right question. They're helping you along, which is great for me, as a new business owner. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Because I hate when accountants are just kind of like, yep, I filed your taxes. You owe this much.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been through that experience before, and it's not fun. You feel like maybe you didn't get your money's worth, and that. Yeah.
Or even just understanding like what was good, what was not good,
right.
What can I do now?
Like how do we improve? How do we generate more profit? How do we cut wasted labor or non-billable hours? And that's what I like about them. They really help us come up with a game plan. And, they're benchmarking us against other companies in the industry. So it's a lot different than somebody just saying, okay, this is how much you made. This is even an accountant's good just telling you that. But when you see your metrics against other companies and that your receivables are coming in 16% faster than most of the people, in the market is great. But so that's been a game changer. I think accounting was a big one, and ever since we've been with Cycle, it's been huge. But I think right now is just the bottleneck that I've kind of led us into, where there's so much stuff that can't happen without me. I realized that kind of early on, about a year and a half in.
Have you ever read the book Buy Back Your Time?
No. But I've heard of it, and I've heard people mention it in a bunch of different podcasts, and it's on my Amazon list.
Okay, you need to get it. If I had one, I have some copies at home. If I'd have one, I'd give it to you.
Yeah, I've heard it is an excellent read.
Yeah.
And it's a must read on everybody's list. So it's on there.
I'd recommend it. It's really, really good. In fact, it's probably, I kind of have a top 5 list in my mind. Like Darren Hardy's Compound Effect was a big book that really I got a lot of value out of. E-Myth was kind of interesting for me. I really enjoyed that book. But that Buy Back Your Time book, not only did I enjoy it, but that book probably changed the most about what my day-to-day life looks like now, more than any other book. Like it was easier, like the way he wrote it was very clear and concise in a way that helped me understand the end point, like the goal. But it also, not only was it in theory, it was also in, and here's how I did it.
Right.
And I pretty much just copied it. And so it's been really important just because, with all the things we have going on at SynkedUP, I've never really run a software company, so I have to figure this out. And how can I build a team? Because I'm only, like everyone else, I'm only one person.
Right.
I can only work so many hours. So, kind of one of the takeaways, or one of the phrases that's coined in the book is most people hire people to do stuff for them instead of hiring. No, that's not right. Most people hire people to give them stuff to do instead of hiring people to buy back their own time.
Right.
They buy them. They hire them for a role. And what happens when you hire someone for a role? What kind of turns into a direct report that you have to manage and all of that, And so all you end up doing is becoming chief people manager.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not saying you get away from that,
Right.
but just the concept of who do I need to hire next? Well, where do I spend most of my time?
Right.
Okay, I spent like you did. Why am I doing this accounting stuff? I should be out there making money, not poring over this, sweating bullets, trying to figure out what this is supposed to mean. So you hired an accountant and bought back your time that you could then reinvest into more high value tasks.
Right.
So it's a really good book.
It's and it's a tough situation to be in too, because you understand what you have to do, but then you have to make the decision. So right now I'm getting into this kind of this decision. Okay, so how long do I want to stay in the field?
Yeah.
Do I want to work in the field a little bit longer and bring in a salesman who goes out and produces revenue by sales, and I want to stay producing and training and helping young adults kind of get into the industry, get better, learn techniques, and kind of help them follow a career path? Or do I want to do that, but also get out of the field and then kind of maybe do a lot of training and sales, and bring in a really, really top-notch operations guy? So that's kind of where I'm going now is, okay, which move do I really want to do? And I really, really enjoy field work. I'm really good at sales, but I also I haven't been in the field for so long that being back in the field for the last couple of years has kind of brought this life back that I think I was missing for a while, just being in management and not being able to build or plant or anything like that. And so it's been interesting, because obviously I'm getting older, my body's slowing down. I can't do the things that I used to be able to do. I'd go out and work 16-hour days with, 2 hours of sleep the night before. I can't do that anymore.
Been there, done that.
So, I think, I'm leaning towards bringing somebody in for sales.
Sure.
At least for right now, for the next few years, and staying in the field for a little bit more. Just because I do really enjoy that. I love the equipment. I love everything about it. The sound of a diesel engine when you start it up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. But, we did expand from last year, getting out of that one crew mindset. And we started 2 crews this year, which has been great because with me running a crew separate from the other producing crew, if for some reason I've got a client that, they have to meet at 11 o'clock on this day and they can't meet any other day, I can do that now. And, the guy that's normally working with me can go, do a smaller job by himself. So it's been nice in that regard. But now I just have to make that next step decision. Do I stay in the field or do I hire a replacement? And then I focus solely on sales and administration, and, some training as well. But sure. I'd like to hire my replacement, if I get out of the field, hire a replacement that's also going to be a trainer, experienced enough that, he can pass on his knowledge. I think that, the more, and everybody knows in the green industry, you can't train on every job site. There's just, there's not time on every job site. And, even though you want to every single hour of the day, you have to make time somewhere. Because if you don't train your guys, you're either floating you're going down or you're floating on this plateau that you never get up because they can't produce any more work faster or cleaner.
Plus, the good employees don't want to work in an environment like that. They're going to leave.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, so that's kind of the bottleneck right now for us is kind of the biggest hurdle, and I think, it's also going to make the biggest change kind of in our personal life, in the business life. It's going to be less stress on me. Which I think then, it's going to have a whole world of benefits, health benefits. My brain's going to be at a lot more ease. Won't be so stressed all the time.
Yeah.
But, and it gives me more time to kind of the process that we do have now, kind of get those documented and stored away, and also work on creating new processes, creating new templates and SynkedUP.
Systems and processes are the key out of the entrepreneurial prison.
Oh yeah.
And that's a little bit where that's kind of tying back to that whole buy back your time book, because the point you're making, like if you insist on, I just do it myself, or I don't have time to train right now, like you will forever be locked in your own prison.
You'll be doing it yourself forever.
Yeah.
It's just a revolving cycle that, and I had a hard time dealing with that moving into management and landscape and realizing that, because a lot of times when I was in operations, I would go out and work with the crew, but then I found myself doing stuff that I was just doing because I didn't want to have to come back and show them how to do it the right way, because I just know, okay, this guy's terrible at grading. I'm going to have to come back and tell this guy to come over here and grade this. And they had a nickname for me with grading because I would go back and regrade soil after somebody's touched it 10 times already. I'm like, no, it's not good enough. and so I got out of that habit real quick when I started my company, because I didn't, and we actually just dealt with that with one of the new employees. He said, well, I noticed that, when we're out mowing, Derek's always coming behind me and he'll hit a spot that I already hit. I said, well, Derek understands that this isn't commercial mowing, which you're used to. Not that you're not a good mower, you're not good at string trimmer, but this is residential mowing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a whole different animal. If you miss a spot at an HOA with 300 homes, nobody cares. If you miss a spot on this $1 million house, that's the one spot they're going to look at all week.
Yeah.
And they're going that guy misses that spot every week.
Yeah.
I said, and also I'm kind of OCD about everything.
Yeah.
So the minute I see an edge not done, I'm like,
well, before we run out of time here, what's been the best advice you've been given?
In my entire kind of 3 years, I think, not being the bottleneck and not taking advice, not listening to other people that have built businesses or been successful, even if it doesn't have anything to do with landscaping or the green industry, because
you're saying to not be the guy that doesn't take advice.
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah. So, to try to, any free groups you can join. Now, I do think you have to be careful there, because there's a lot of groups that
with a grain of salt
are not really there to help.
Yeah.
They're, but find some really good, reputable groups and
getting a mentor,
get a coach.
Key. Yeah.
That's been major in.
That's one of the cool things about the age of social media is that's so much easier to do.
Yeah. Well, and you can so quickly verify somebody.
Yeah.
And realize that, okay, well, this guy, I've heard of that business and he's using them.
Yeah.
Which is great. But yeah, the groups have been unbelievable.
Good. Well, the SD card's got 40 seconds left on it. So I just want to say thanks a million for putting your faith and trust in us at SynkedUP. That's something we don't take lightly. We appreciate greatly.
It's been awesome. And it's our SynkedUP is ever evolving with more templates, more items, and it's been a blessing in disguise, because it teaches us so much about what we miss or don't know.
Yeah. And that's what it is. If you need the feedback loop, go back, go,
job cost it and look at what happened.
Yep.
You'll figure it out.
That's the only way you're going to improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never forget that item that you didn't bring the last time and then you had to pay out of pocket for.
Well, thanks again for your hospitality, man.
Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.